And I owe you 50 quid, mate. Like, I owe you a crisp salmon because I said Ireland would win by 15-20. I really did believe that. Turns out, New Zealand played very, very well. Ireland were really stuttery. And now that's 2 on the bounce for New Zealand. Its score ended up Ireland 13, New Zealand 23. That's the first defeat Ireland have had at home in over 3.5 years. I did not see it coming, mate. I didn't see it coming.
Yep, it's there's 2 things I'd like to say this morning. First thing I'd like to say is it's going to feel absolutely beautiful to receive this hot 50 from you. I can't express in words how much delight it brings me to take money off one of the richest men I know. It brings me great joy. And the second thing I'd like to say is I have a massive apology to make to Will Jordan. Didn't put him in my top 10 wingers. Top 5 wingers, and am immediately regretting it after that performance. It's like he heard the podcast, mate, and he wanted to prove a point because I thought he was unbelievable last night, obviously. Added to that try-scoring record, looked great in the air, looked great in counter-attack. So those are my 2 opening points for this morning. One apology, and one bit of gloating.
I accept. I was humbled. I did. I honestly thought Ireland would be better. And then you sort of think, oh, okay, maybe, it's a long time since they've played. You start giving yourself all the excuses. But it was so uncharacteristic of Ireland. So they had like 30 missed tackles, 21 handling errors. They lost 3 of their own lineouts, which is unheard of. Because Ireland, when I think about playing Ireland, is they play with rhythm, they play with flow. And what they do is they hold on to the ball, they run their little tight shapes, that arrowhead which was spoken about, the 10 out the back of that, then the next 2 podder forwards with someone out the back of that, and it's all these little shapes and little movements to create speed of ball and everything like that. There was none of that in the game, no flow. I mean, the last 20, there was spilling balls, they weren't hitting who they're supposed to hit. They looked really disjointed for them. But what they do by maintaining and holding onto the ball and having rhythm is often teams infringe. And then they kick it into the corner. Then their line-out is traditionally so good, obviously coached by the great Paul O'Connell. It was just very uncharacteristic of Ireland. And like not even at one point really did they get into New Zealand's half properly and create that rhythm and flow that you suspect so much. Conditions probably played a part in that because the breakdown seemed an absolute mess, the amount of balls that spill out the side of that. But then second half, the kick-off, they obviously get done. There was a lot of penalties for the rule that we've spoken about, Tone, about protecting the catcher, obstructing the chaser and everything like that. So that happened a few times. Anyway, penalty straight after half time. They kick for the corner. I'm thinking, right, now Ireland are going to go. Now this is kind of the bit they needed. Like a bit of like, they've obviously had a bit of a reset at half time. They come out, they kick for the corner. They lose the line out, right? New Zealand shift it. Sam Cane gets carried over the line, scrum. That leads to a try. And I'm thinking, right, Ireland's tails are up now. They've gotten a bit of rhythm and flow. But then New Zealand just totally nullified it again. And Ireland never really got going after that. It was like a 2-minute period where they went going. Other than that, New Zealand just seemed to deal with everything they got. And I didn't feel like New Zealand had to work particularly hard to squeeze penalties, field position, goal kicking opportunities out of them.
I think when you look at the Sage Insights and having watched the game, it all makes a pretty clear picture. Like, if you are going to try and hold the ball like Ireland do, you need your discipline to be on point. You need your set piece to be on point. And you need, if you don't have either of those, your accuracy has to be 100%. And I felt like Ireland didn't have a set piece platform. Obviously, like you said, their line-out wasn't great and they lost one of their own scrums. And their discipline, 13 penalties to New Zealand's 5, I think it was. So that already brings on a massive amount of pressure onto you as a team. So when you've already got that kind of working against you, your accuracy has to be 100%. Like, you have to be able to go in the 22 and kind of go against the odds and get points every single time you're down there if your discipline's that bad and your set piece isn't functioning how it should. And Ireland just didn't have that accuracy to combat those 2 points. So I think that's where the game was really won and lost, was in their lack of accuracy combined with discipline and a poor set piece. But you're absolutely right, Len. It didn't look like Ireland had a great rhythm and flow, and it didn't look like they could get into it as they usually do. And whether that was down to New Zealand's defence or whether that was down to a bit of rust, I'm not sure. But I think that Ireland and Andy Farrell will probably be pretty fuming with the performance, not necessarily the loss, because I don't think it's a game-changing loss, but I think that the performance will probably wind them up more than the result itself, to be honest.
You know what? There was so much hype around this game. Like, people are talking about it. It's like, you know, this huge rugby rivalry. Like, it's only been a bit of a rivalry of late because of what happened in the quarterfinals, because of what happened that game in Chicago in like 2016, which was the first time Ireland had beaten New Zealand. Like, it's only till sort of recent years it's become a bit of a rivalry, but I wouldn't say it's like the modern day great rivalry. But it was an exciting game. I felt like this was the game of the weekend, but it turned out to it didn't feel for me live up to the hype of what we were all expecting. The intensity of it wasn't as high as I thought it was going to be. Like, the skill level that Ireland had wasn't traditionally as good as we know them to be. And but the breakdown was so messy. I mean, the New Zealand halfback had a really difficult 50 minutes at it because Ireland were competing for everything. Every time they made a tackle, they get back on their feet, they're trying to go through the ruck, create chaos. They're competing for everything, which makes it difficult when you're attacking against, but equally then you do roll the dice of getting discipline, and often that happened. Let's talk about Damien McKenzie. So the Sage Insights as well for him, given the fact that Beauden Barrett missed this weekend, and there was a bit of chat about him coming in. We spoke about it in the week, didn't we? But 4 offloads, he meters carried was 108, he defenders beaten was 6, and of course he kicked 18 points. Really like mature performance from Damien McKenzie. I thought he was outstanding last night. And Will Jordan, as you said, I thought he diffused every high ball. I thought those two were really pivotal.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences between Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie traditionally has been a question mark over game management and goal kicking, etc., etc. But his goal kicking, as of the last 2 games, has looked ridiculous. And I think the question mark has never been his ability to create stuff ball in hand. We already know that he does that week in, week out in Super Rugby, and when he gets the opportunity for the All Blacks. So that, for me, has never been in question. I think it's getting the balance right in games like yesterday, where it's wet, where it's, you know, a niggly opposition, put it that way. And I thought he got the balance right yesterday really well. You know, yeah, there was a couple of times where there was some loose stuff. I think he probably should have given the ball to... there was a 2-on-1. I can't remember who was on his outside, but he probably should have given it in that instance. Outside. But, you know... Exactly, and I mean, I think I saw Talaya's mouth afterwards, and he was definitely shouting a few obscenities after that. But you know, I thought he had a great game. I thought he looked unflustered, and that's what you want from your 10. I just want to touch on something, Len, that you mentioned there about rugby rivalries. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but I don't know. I don't know if you saw Rico Ioane's Instagram. But obviously after they've beat Ireland in Ireland and all the controversy over Johnny Sexton's book, he's put up a post saying, "Put that in your book." I'm not. I wasn't big for saying it's one of rugby's biggest rivalries before, when you've got South Africa, New Zealand, and so on and so on. But stuff like that definitely sells the sport a little bit, and I think that that's great. Like, it's. I mean, I know it'll wind people up and it'll, you know, create a bit of drama, but that's what you want from sport. So I loved that from him. And I think that if that type of stuff carries on, it might be one of rugby's greatest rivalries, like, legitimately.
And do you know what the thing about rugby is? Like, because it's such a contact physical sport, it's like, fair play. He's putting himself out there, like, because the next time they play, like, do you know what I mean? It's such a physical game, but he's basically saying, yeah, bring it on, like, let's have it. Fair play to him. He's sort of thriving in that, I suppose, what is it, like the circus of what it's all unravelled after 2023. But I think the beer in the change room tasted pretty good for New Zealand after that. The one thing, just quickly, was Will Jordan's strike rate again, phenomenal. I think this is where the New Zealand last night was the New Zealand that wasn't there at the week before against England, which is they had one sort of clear opportunity. They probably had 3 opportunities, but they took one. And their ability just to control their feet, hold the width, and they literally just pick them off with great distribution. And that's what New Zealand that I know of is like. They just shift, and they make it look so easy. And Will Jordan's just just scoring in the corner, but they've just picked you off, but they haven't done anything spectacular in doing it. They've just got the skill level and the execution just to kind of, oh, there's an opportunity, there's the width, oh, there you go, you're a bit tight and D, and there's the try. And that's where the New Zealand last night, I was like, yeah, that's the New Zealand I sort of know of or have faced previously, and I didn't see that last week. But Scott Robertson, or Razor as we know him, everything's coming together for him. 2 from 2 with France to come.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get not more difficult, but they're going to have to keep that same intensity next week as well to try and get a win against France in France. But you're absolutely right, Len, about the skill execution. Like I said earlier, that was definitely a difference between the two teams, was being able to go down there and come away with points. But you're right in terms of, New Zealand making things look so simple when they do it right, because it's so easy, when you've got a potential line break, to want to creep on the edge. And what I mean by creep is you end up flatter. So there's less space between the defensive line and you as an attacker. And I think that the composure and trust within your system to maintain the right depth and still execute the skill to be able to get it to the edge whilst holding defenders inside you is high level stuff. And I think that you're right, that is definitely New Zealand of old, to be able to get it there with their composure and execute in the corner. So they'll definitely be thrilled with that. France away next week, like we said, it's not going to be any easy task. But I don't know, you don't want to bet against them now, do you?
I'm going to weigh up whether I want to put another wager on this one, given the fact that I'm going to have to cough up for you anyway ahead of that one. But we'll decide throughout the week. And then Argentina up for Ireland. I think Ireland will not have such a disjointed display. They've got game time under the belt. I don't suspect them losing like 3 line-outs again. Not with the calibre they have in terms of their line-out operators, and Paul O'Connell at the helm of that. Discipline will be way better, and I suspect they'll have a lot more continuity and rhythm in their game, which over the years is something that you expect Ireland to have, which is hold the ball for long passages, have proper continuity in what they do in rhythm. So it'll be interesting. I think you'll see much improved performance from Ireland. There's probably some selections to be debated, but we don't have to worry about that, Tone. So we're all good. And I enjoyed a Friday night game. That was nice. I enjoyed a Friday night game. I thought the sort of whole atmosphere to it, the light show, the whole lot, I enjoyed that. I can get behind that, and I reckon it's something to be looked at for the sort of, I suppose, future fixtures.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Rugby's kind of got to not differentiate itself, but it's got to look at new ways. And I know that a Friday night game is not necessarily new, but for an international, it's relatively uncommon. I think that having the larger games of the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, makes a bigger difference, similar to they do in the Premiership. But I think international rugby, it makes a big difference. And there is a different atmosphere around Friday night games. Some of the lads hate them, but I love playing in them because you got all day to chill out, sleep, and then just think about the game and get ready. So I think it's I think it was a great mix-up. I think it's definitely something that they should carry on with.
So that's the New Zealand Ireland game. Tone covered off. So will New Zealand beat France next week? Comment below, let us know what you think. Will they do it? And also, if you're Ireland fans, would you make any changes? And if you would make changes, what changes would you make?